G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Matthew Pollard, the rapid growth guy and author of The Introverts Edge, based in North Carolina, US. Thanks for your time today, Matthew.
Mate, I'm ecstatic to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Let's start with how we know each other. Joseph from Guest Experts on Air put us in touch a few months ago. Thought you'd be a great guest. And as we were speaking before I hit record, you've already been on around 200 podcasts and some of the big ones as well. So I'm really looking forward to our chat today.
Definitely, mate. I mean, people would have just thought we were two Aussies that found each other in our community, because everyone I speak to that finds out I'm Australian says, "Oh, do you know so-and-so?" Like it is a small town, but I know you grew up in small town, so you're used to that, I'm sure.
Yes, I am. And now I'm living in Tasmania, even more so. People ask, "Oh, you're from Tasmania. Do you know such and such?" Well, there's 500,000 people in the States, so no, I don't know that person.
Yeah.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, so I mean, my focus is inspiring introverts to realize they're not second-class citizens. Their path to success is just different to that of an extrovert. I feel like a lot of introverts feel they can't sell, they can't network. And even if they feel like they could, they feel like they'd have to become someone that they're not, like an extrovert. And the truth is, there are what I would call secret introverted titans everywhere. As a matter of fact, I have a podcast called The Introverts Edge, and it's all about shining the spotlight on amazing introverts like the founder of billion-dollar brand UGG Boots, the sheepskin boot company, right through to the founder of Ivan Misner, the founder of the largest networking event in the world, BNI. So for me, I spend my life trying to help introverts realize that not only can they actually make the best salespeople, the best networkers, and the best business people, the best leaders. And I guess if you want to talk about how I make my money, I speak all over the world. I'm lucky enough to be able to do that. I know this sounds weird from an introvert perspective, but I absolutely love the impact I can make from stage. Still feel a little bit like skydiving when I get off the stage. I'm exhausted, but I love doing that. I consult. I have online programs, and my books now have been lucky enough to sell about 100,000 copies. They're in 16 languages, and I love every day hearing about the impact that they make.
That's great, and a good niche that you focus in on introverts and helping them. I didn't realize that Ivan, the founder of BNI, was an introvert.
Nobody realizes that most successful people are introverts, funnily enough. So that's the reason we have the podcast, because I mean, Zig Ziglar, the most well-known sales trainer on the planet, was also an introvert. And the thing that I find is, and if we define, it's probably an important thing for your audience, what introversion is, it's just where you draw your energy. That's it. It doesn't mean you can't do any of these skill sets. Now, some might say that introverts aren't naturally gifted with, they don't have the gift of gab. Some might say extroverts aren't the most empathetic, they're not the most active listeners. And the difference is, I find that those extroverts know they can learn those skills, or a HR manager will push them to learn those skills. But everybody says, "Oh, poor Johnny can't learn to sell because he's an introvert," or he wouldn't want to be a salesperson. And what I hate most is people say, "Oh, I can't go and start my own business because that involves selling and networking, and I can't do that." Now, I'm not saying you should want to do these things. I'm just saying you shouldn't go into deciding what you want with limitations. You should decide what you want and then learn the skill sets and know nothing is outside your reach. Everything has a system and process. And so there are lots of introverts that have become successful, and not just in the tech space, which I think is even more important. The trouble is, so many people say, "Oh, I was introverted, but I'm not anymore. Now I'm more on the extroverted side," because they demonstrate success in networking and sales. Well, they're an introvert that's learned a system to succeed. And they're still tired afterwards, just not as much, because they're not as anxious about it anymore. They're not, beating themselves up about all the negative things they said or that they shouldn't have said. And that usually comes with planning, preparation, and practice. So there are amazing introverts everywhere. Just most people don't realize, because we project extroversion upon those people.
Yeah, great. Yeah, 7 Ps, prior preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yes, that's 100% correct. And I will say, most people plan and prepare in most things of their business. They've spent a lifetime studying some form of profession to be great at some form of functional skill. And then they go out and wing networking and say, oh, I wasn't made to be a networker. Well, if you're an accountant, you probably weren't made to be an accountant the first time you walked. Like, you didn't do a complex tax return the first time you did it. You went, you studied, you learned. It's networking's the same, sales is the same. And I mean, I absolutely learned that the hard way myself. So I'm not saying that, you know, I naturally was able to figure that out. But what I find is most introverts assume that they can't. They don't put any effort into trying.
And how did you start out?
Well, actually, in fairness, I should be the last person telling people how to be successful in sales. So, I mean, I had a reading speed of a sixth grader in late high school. I got diagnosed with this thing. I was misdiagnosed as dyslexic for a long time. But when I was about the age of 16, I got diagnosed with this thing called Irlen syndrome, which basically means I put on a funny pair of colored lenses, which definitely didn't help me with my confidence, but it did allow me to learn to read, not like everyone else, but start the process of learning to read. Well, I hustled the last 2 years of high school and I got into the top 20% of my state, but I have to say I was exhausted. My family could see I had no idea what I wanted to do. And we all agreed I was going to take a year off to find myself. And, you know, I took a job at a real estate agency. And before people think I was the person out selling, I wasn't. I was the guy doing data entry in the back office. You know, look at my face, don't speak to me. I'm here to find myself. And about 3 weeks, you might know it was Elders Real Estate in Australia. Unfortunately, the office that I was working at shut down 3 weeks after I started. And so this was just before Christmas. And most people don't know in Australia, maybe you've told them, but we have our summer around Christmas time. And so no one's really hiring between the 20th of December and the 15th to 20th of January because we're taking our summer holidays and our Christmas holidays at the same time. So the only jobs I could find in the paper, because there was no way I was going to go home and tell my father, who broke his back 80 hours a week, I'm out of work. So I promised to support myself. I went looking for a way. And I found 3 commission-only sales roles. That's what they were called, commission-only. They were the only jobs in the paper. Terrifying for someone like me, especially. I had pretty bad chronic acne, so I always felt like people were judging me based on what they saw. I always felt like the slow kid. The only thing more terrifying than applying for those jobs was telling my father that I had nothing lined up. So I picked up the phone, I called 3 jobs, and I got 3 job interviews. And I went, oh, hang on a second. Then I got 3 job offers. And I'm like, wow, maybe they see something in me I don't see in myself. So I took a job doing business-to-business telecommunications sales. And I remember going into the first day with a little bit of quiet confidence about myself. And the trainer put this to bed really quickly. He's like, Matt, they just hire everyone. They've got this saying, you just throw mud up against the wall, see what sticks, which I guess is a fun saying until you realize you're the mud. So yeah, it was hard. So after 5 days product training and not a single second of sales training, I get thrown on this road. You might know it. It's Sydney Road in Melbourne, Australia. And it's just door after door of these stores from different cultures, different types of businesses. I get told to go sell. Sounds great. No one actually told me what to say, though. I just knew about the product. So I take a deep breath, go into my first door, and luckily enough, I was politely told to leave. And I say luckily enough because shortly after that, I was less politely told to leave. Then I was sworn at. My personal favorite, though, was always getting told to go and get a real job. I mean, this was the only job I could get. So door after door, this happened until I got to my 93rd door where I made my first sale. And I made about $70 that day. And I remember when I walked out after that sale, I was ecstatic for about 45 seconds because I was, working at McDonald's during high school. And I mean, that was a lot of money for me back then. But then I had the second realization, I got to do this again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And I was like, you know what? This is not okay. But I wasn't willing to go and quit because I didn't want to tell my father I was out of work. I made a decision that I think changed my life. I decided that sales had to be a system. And then I was like, well, how am I going to learn this system? Well, I couldn't exactly pick up a Brian Tracy or a Zig Ziglar book. It would have taken me a year to read those, let alone apply them. But I did, luckily enough, discover YouTube at that time. And it was just coming out. We were still on dial-up back then. And I typed in sales system and all these videos came up. So I would spend 8 hours in the field applying what I learned every day. Then I'd rush home and I'd spend 8 hours practicing. Weekends, I would spend 16 hours practicing the next step in the process, perfecting the one I was working on. And I know this isn't sounding fun to anyone, but very quickly I got better. And truthfully, there are smarter ways to do it now, I've learned. But back then, this is all I knew. Soon it was 71 doors before a sale. Then it was 48. Then it was 36. Then it was 18. Then it was 9. Eventually, I got it down to making a sale from cold calling every 3 doors. About 6 weeks in, my manager pulls me aside and he had that face I've seen before. I was getting fired again. I was like, what have I done wrong? I mean, I was the quiet guy that handed my paperwork in downstairs, didn't really talk to anyone upstairs. And he looks at me and he's like, Matt, we're kind of blown away by this. got our national sales figures. You're the number one salesperson in the company. This was the largest sales and marketing company in the Southern Hemisphere, and it took 6 weeks.
Wow.
So he looks at me and he says, Matt, if you can sell, you can manage, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world. I have no idea why people think that. I told him I couldn't sell. I couldn't manage. He's like, no worries. We'll give you 20 people, mud up against the wall, see what sticks. Everyone quit within 24 hours. But I went back to YouTube, learned to manage, got pretty good at that, and got promoted about 7 times. By the end of the year, I started up my own business. Fast forward just shy of a decade, I've been responsible for 5 multi-million-dollar success stories.
Great work. Congratulations. And your current business now, what year did you start that and how old were you?
So I started my last business, my current business just after my 30th birthday. So I'm just over 40 now. So I've been doing it for just over 10 years.
Right. So what, that was 2014, 15?
2014 I started, yeah.
Yeah, great. And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last 10 years?
Sure. So, a lot of my businesses, and actually it's probably better because I know you're doing this for credibility reasons. So most of my businesses in Australia grew to, multiple millions within the space of just a couple of years, went on to, employ at least 50 staff or more. The business that I have now is far different. And while I've started everything from telecommunications businesses, which was my first, right through to accredited education in Australia, there's a lot more costs involved in those. This business, don't get me wrong, we still have multiple 6-figure income streams, but most of it's profit. There really isn't many costs. I do have a team of 12, and that is my only cost in the business. But yeah, the biggest thing for us is, we have well over $500,000 just consulting business. We earn, multiple 6 figures in my speaking business. We have an online program. We have books. We have a whole bunch of different revenues streams. And most of those I would consider different businesses and different line items. So it's you would call it recession proof. During the COVID situation, a lot of speakers, their whole businesses fell apart. My business went into virtual and we actually did better, but then we also had the online program, the consultancy business off the side. So I like to say this is my hobby business. It just happens to turn over quite a fair amount of profit.
Yeah, that's great. So you're up to 12 team members now. You started out on your own in this business?
Yeah, I started with just me. So, my first hire was an executive assistant, just so that I could get some tasks done. And I hired someone, local in the US. I didn't hire someone in the Philippines. But the number one thing that I did, which I felt this is from a place of authenticity for me, is I grew this business off the profits of this business. I find a lot of consultants that have had successful business careers, they then fund the starting of their business. And the problem is that then they're trying to teach other consultants or other service providers, and they had a financial benefit, where they actually could self-finance. So for me, my entire growth cycle was 100% supported by the growth in this specific space. Yeah. And and if it's helpful, my business has more than doubled just in the last 12 months. Wow.
Congratulations. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
You know what? Actually, I'm going to tell you when I didn't succeed. So I remember I was 20, I'm going to say almost 21. And my first business in Australia did so well, I actually won the Melbourne Young Achiever Award. And for me, who always felt like the slow kid, that to me was the paramount. I had, if you're familiar with Eureka Tower, which was the big deal place to live, I had one of the bigger apartments in that place. I had multiple cars. I had all the fancy stuff. I had clothes I didn't wear because I don't like that I was that person, but I felt like I did all of that to prove that I was worthy. And winning this award was like, see, told you I wasn't useless. The slow kids finally made it. I remember going home and I was miserable. I remember saying, if this is what success looks like, you can keep it. And what I realized is that I spent a lot of time focusing on making money. And what I realized pretty quickly afterwards is that you really can create rapid growth out of anything. There's nothing worse than a rapid growth business with customers you don't like and a business you can't stand. Yep. So one of the biggest things that I focus on now is helping people create businesses that they're very passionate about that are high profit, right? A lot of people say, I need to make the practical decision to make profit and then I can do what I want on the side. I believe that firstly, a lot of people pick that business and then it doesn't make the profit that they want. And they go, well, this was supposed to be the practical decision. I don't even want this. And then they spin out. The other thing that I notice people do is they don't put in as much energy, right? So for me, all my businesses did well enough, but never set me on fire. Like never, I really didn't feel my soul ignited. This is the business. And when you say, how do I feel truly successful? I mean, I earn phenomenal money and I love making money because I'm on a mission to help introverts realize they're not second-class citizens. And I believe that you need to earn amazing money because missions cost money to constantly get more people. But then when you get your mission in front of more people, you then make more money. And passion is the biggest driver for all of that. Because on a podcast like this, I hope people can hear how passionate I am about this, even though my voice is fried because I had a cold all last week. We're talking about that. You're in the same boat. But passion sells everything. When I speak from stage, I get a shot of adrenaline before I get up on stage. And it's not about me. It's about the people in the audience. And I feel that that I truly felt successful. I mean, everything that I do at the moment, this business, probably since 6 months into starting it, has felt that way. Because it's not just that I make great money. It's not just that I help great people. It's that I feel like I'm doing what I was supposed to do my whole life. And, I'm now listed as, by Selling Power Magazine as the Sales Kickoff Speaker of the Year. My book is listed by Book Authority as the #1 book in the marketplace for introverts. It's won, sales awards. My networking book's won a whole bunch of awards. I get all of this external stuff. But I mean, I won the 2007 Young Achiever Award in Melbourne. It's meaningless unless you're doing what you love. And so when you ask me how I truly knew I was successful, it's when every single day, I can't imagine doing anything I'd prefer more than what I do every day.
Yeah. And does that answer what success looks like to you then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel that a lot of people feel like success has a monetary element. I feel like you can make money doing lots of things. The fact is most people sell their soul to make money and then try and fill it with items that don't make a difference in their life. I feel that as soon as you stop worrying about the items, you then focus on making money in a way that's passion focused for yourself. And then you actually make more money than you would have ever anticipated. Now, a lot of people do get caught up on the revenue number. I'm far more focused on the profit number.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Okay. The number one thing I would suggest is that you differentiate yourself. What I find is that most people are going into, and here's what I would say. And my networking book kind of highlights this. My whole goal is to help you master the networking room so you never have to go back to one unless you truly want to. Now, what I find though is most people can't answer the question, what is it that you do, in a way that actually motivates, inspires people to be interested in what they do. And if you can't articulate what you do when somebody's politely listening for 2 to 3 minutes, you just have no chance online. So what I always recommend, and a lot of people want to go and spend money on ads and all those sorts of things. And while I don't want to say you shouldn't do those things, you're not smart to do those things until you master the networking room and make sure everything you say resonates. So my suggestion is that firstly, when somebody asks you what you do in a networking group, you should not say your functional skill. The first time I said I was a sales trainer, somebody looked at me like I was one step above a scam artist. When I said I was in marketing, they're like, oh, I need that. How much do you cost? Now, for those people that think they're clever by saying, oh, I don't tell them, I just ask a whole bunch of questions. Firstly, you can't do that online. And secondly, no one likes to be interrogated the moment they meet you. So what I like to do is, and by the way, an elevator pitch is horrible. It's transactional. It just does not work. So what I do is include what I call a unified message and then a passion mission framework. So what is a unified message? A unified message is something that separates you from everyone else. For instance, when I first meet people, I don't say, well, firstly, a sales trainer it belittles the value I think I provide my ideal audience. A marketing person, well, I also help people with sales and I also help introverts. It doesn't encapsulate the value of what I provide, but I don't have the time to explain. And truthfully, nobody cares. For everyone listening, no one cares what you do. No one cares how hard it is for you to learn it or how amazing it is. What they care about is the value you provide them. But more than that, they care to know that you care. So people want to know that you care before they care what you do. So in a networking room, I will say, thanks for asking, I'm the rapid growth guy. It works for 2 reasons. One is that I've been interested before I'm trying to be interesting. So because of that, people want to reciprocate by asking a question. Secondly, though, they don't know what that means. It's like their brain has a malfunction. They'll inform me, sorry, what is that? Because the brain is programmed to classify and disqualify or classify and say, I need that. So by saying I'm the rapid growth guy, they will then lean forward and go, what exactly is that? And then I will respond with what I call a passion mission dialogue. So I will say, well, thanks for asking. One of the things I love to see more than anything in the world is an amazing introverted service provider with enough talent, skill, and belief in themselves to start a business of their own. But what I find, I just hate seeing this, is they get stuck in this endless hamster wheel, struggling to find interested people, trying to set themselves apart, trying to make the sale, feeling like people only care about one thing, price. Do you know anyone like that? When they respond in the affirmative, which as long as you've done to your point, planning and preparation beforehand, research the room, connect with people in advance, then they'll respond to the affirmative. And I say, well, I'm on a mission to help people like yourself realize you really can have a rapid growth business doing what you love, just not by getting better at your functional skill. You're probably amazing at that. But instead, just 3 things outside the scope of that allow you to build a business that revolves around you, your family, and your life, not the other way around. And then I might explain what I do through a story. Here's what you noticed that was different. I didn't tell you what I do because nobody cares. I love to see what I hate to see in the mission that I'm on. It's all about them. It's all them focused. So what I find is most people put themselves in a bucket the moment they start. They go in and they say, I sell insurance. People's eyes are going to explode. They're going to want to run away from you. Say you're an accountant. People are like, oh gosh, here we go. What you need to do is have something that separates you from everyone else. And then you need to convey care. Once you learn to convey care, people will then lean into your stories where you can convey what you do. If I was to sit down with any business and they say to me, we're not making enough profit, it's either because they don't have enough leads coming in, or those leads see them as a commodity and they want to fight with them on price. So we need to get them to sidestep that battle altogether. And we do that by unified message, talking about passion and mission, and then conveying and educating people about what they need to do while embedding yourself as the only logical choice through story. Once you have that, you can then apply all the techniques that people see in modern day marketing and get far better and greater results. If you don't have that, what happens is you follow every shiny object marketing thing that people are doing for the day and just end yourself with a whole bunch of extra full-time jobs.
Yep, totally agree. And you funded this business from its own cash flow. Any of the other businesses, like did you have investors, or you've done them all on your own? Oh, that's great.
I don't do investors.
Yep.
And I will say, I'm not saying that people don't benefit from investors. What I don't like is that people think that that's the best and most valid option. As a matter of fact, I found an event in America called Small Business Festival. As a matter of fact, the mayor of Austin actually had a speech that said there are 4 things in Austin that we're really proud of. We have Formula One, we have ACL, we have South by Southwest, and we have Small Business Festival. And Small Business Festival is one I found that I won multiple proclamations of thanks from the governor's office of Texas and from the city of Austin. And one of the events we ran, we had like 5,000 people attend. And I, of course, don't get to go to all of them. My job's to make sure that it all runs smoothly. Well, not anymore. Somebody else does that. But one of the events that I went to, I remember there was a panel, and there was one person that got angel invested, one person that borrowed money, and one person that got, actual, VC money. And it was talking about the person that borrowed money from the bank. She wasn't even invited to any of the startup parties because it was kind of embarrassing. She hadn't really made it. She's only got bank money. The person that got angel investing was kind of one of the cool kids. The person that got VC funding, wow. I mean, amazing. Those 2 people had bosses. The person that borrowed the money didn't have a boss. But the problem was a lot of people firstly, most people have gambling addictions, not businesses. I actually have an article called, Do You Have a Small Business or a Gambling Addiction? Because people have an idea, they go and work in their garage, they create an idea, they blow their family's money, and they've never actually validated if somebody's even interested. They have no intent in selling it. They're just excited by the dream of, I'm going to build it, launch a website, and people will come, all without validating the actual idea. So if you're going to do that, sure, try and get somebody else's money. It's better than blowing your family's funds on that. But what I also find is so many people spend their life savings trying to get investment funding when they could have done it on their own or got sales to fund it. So the thing that I will say is understand what funding is. It is you giving up a part of your business, and for a long time, giving yourself a boss. So if you know that you need to create mass scale and your business is low margins or going to lose money short term to get there, you might need investment funding. But if you're a consultant, you don't need investment funding. If you've got a product that's high profit, you don't need investment funding. Now, sure, your speed to growth may be slower, and that's a decision you have to make, but you end up owning it and having high profit. Now, there is the right direction for lots of people, and I've helped people get investment funding, VC funding, angel hack funding, because again, people, one of the things I teach all the time is storytelling. And I like, instead of giving all the jargon for why your product makes sense, you tell a story of a single person. And I used to judge Angel Hack about what was a great pitch. And there was always a great story involved in it. But a lot of people shouldn't even be going down that path. They just are trying to avoid needing to sell for as long as possible. And nobody wants to invest in somebody that's trying to avoid to sell.
The recent Melbourne Cup, someone asked me if I'm going to put a bet on if I gamble. I said, I don't gamble. I own 7 businesses. I gamble every day.
Well, see, what I will say is you do informed guessing. And anyone that says they're not gambling in business is lying, right? But the thing is, there are people that play blackjack where the odds are slightly in your favor and you're following a strategy. And there are people that just throw all their money on 27 on the roulette table. And I feel that most people that go into business, they throw all their money on 27 because they've got a great idea they've not validated, but they don't want anybody to tell them that it's a bad idea because we've got to be positive. Or they go into business because they want to make a great 6-figure income doing what they love, but they're hoping that they could just put their plaque on a website and people will come to them. And that sometimes happens. The problem is they don't charge enough. They're constantly devaluing themselves and they feel these customers are constantly taking advantage of them, and it's on them that happens. So usually people either eventually give up because they're not making any money or get tired of being, they leave a boss so they can be their own boss. And then they realize they've now got 63 bosses that none of them care about calling them after hours. And so they realize it's not fun, which is why so many businesses fail. What I find is people with great strategies catapult forward and end up in the best place ever. The ones that just start a business because they think they should, or that they just want to make an income doing what they love, but they're going to subconsciously avoid the marketing and the sales roles, end up going back to jobs they hate.
I think I know the answer to this one. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would. And I wouldn't change a thing in the way I'm doing it. And again, the question is, what is if I had unlimited funding to do what I'm doing, and there were no strings to it, why wouldn't I take it? But the truth is that funding doesn't come without strings more often than not. And therefore, it's far more likely I would still do it the way I'm doing it.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
I would say coming to terms with the fact that I was going to burn money while I learned stuff. And there are 2 ways to burn money. One is you burn money while you go through the school of hard knocks. And the other one is you burn money on bad coaches before you find the right one. And you get better at that and your calibration gets better. The other thing I have found is that when you first start, most people start multiple businesses at the one time because they feel like they're hedging and that's being safer. But you have firstly, you have limited supply in both focus, time, and funding. So most people that start multiple businesses guarantee their failure in all of them. And there have been times that my first business or my second business was starting to really hit a mark and I went, oh, let's try this shiny object. And that's a very expensive mistake.
Yeah, we had 4 or 5 companies in Melbourne and I shit you not, our holding company was called Opportunity Junkies. I mean, if that wasn't a sign.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you've taken a different trend like I have now. I get one business, I make sure it's successful. I then build another one or I look for a parallel industry. But what happens usually is people say, oh, but I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I'm like, no, but get it to stand on its feet. It's the other thing about specialization. I hate using the word niching because people are like, oh, I don't want to get stuck for a niche. Well, they're truthfully just scared. What they're saying is, I don't want to turn down any clients. So I'm worried my current clients will fire me. And I'm like, put on your website for a week that you're a dentist. No one cares. The referrals will say, it's weird that you're a dentist, but John said you're a great accountant. Or, I saw you're a dentist on your website. You can still do my books and records, right? Nobody cares. Like, you need to understand that niching is new market acquisition. But I don't like using the word niching because everyone just thinks it's an industry vertical. So I like using the word specialization. But what I find is when you specialize, what happens is people then say, oh, we're doing kind of well here. Let's focus on this one area and then this area and this area. Like, no, when I started in this space, I helped just introverted business coaches. And then as that grew, I moved to introverted professional service providers that had complex fields like MSPs, people that any technology, finance, wealth management, that sort of thing. Then I moved it out to service providers in general. And truthfully, today, by specializing in introverts, I have more extroverted clients than I ever had when I first started. it's not a bad thing to specialize, because people hear specialty and they say, oh, they must have a better general knowledge than the average person, and that's why they're able to specialize. So you get your cake and eat it too. What I find is shiny objects are the detriment of small business owners, and most people that are proud entrepreneurs love their shiny object focus. They like, that's what makes me me. And I'm like, yes, you have to control that. Have shiny object syndrome on what moves you to the next step, that moves you to the next step. And when you've got momentum where you have to kind of get in the way when it comes to rapid growth, which if you're full and single-minded doesn't take anywhere near as long as you think, you get the benefit of choice at that point.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I think being more vulnerable, personally. I have found I wanted for years to come across as bulletproof. And I think that had a lot to do with me not being ready to share who I was. I was a socially awkward kid. I had bad acne. I feel like I built a really big shell to make sure no one penetrated it. And the truth was, especially in this business, the fact is introverts have to be very vulnerable with me. There's no way they're going to trust me unless I'm vulnerable with them. So, and don't get me wrong, I actually had 26 stitches across the side of my face, and there's a vulnerable story there about how hard that was for me. But that story is too much. It dissuades from the message. So I don't share that story very often. But I put up this photo of me at my sister's wedding with this horrible acne, and I let people laugh at it for a couple of seconds, only because I've told this story about a client that I worked with, and they're like, my gosh, this guy's a superhero. And I need to bring myself down a peg so everyone else can come back up with me. I'm very strategic about how I do that. I think about what story. It's not about me. It's about, and I think that's one of my skill sets. I believe every introvert has an edge, and that's why my books are called The Introvert's Edge. But I believe we spend so long talking about introverts and our disadvantages, and I'm like, no, but we also have these amazingly powerful edges. And so I like to talk about those a lot. And I think my edge is the ability to really focus on others and be empathetic. But my ability to be vulnerable while doing that allows me to go, okay, this is what they need to hear in order to open up, to trust me, or to trust that they really can learn a sales system, or they can learn a networking system and still feel congruent, because I'm not trying to force them to become someone they're not. And it's interesting, when I had that force field around myself, people would still want to believe, but couldn't believe, because they felt like they couldn't be authentically being themselves, because I wasn't being authentically being myself. I think that was the skill set that had the most profound impact. And what's funny is the moment that I was willing to do it, I felt more connected and far less weird than the big shell that I had, but it still took the willingness to be open to that.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
There's nothing I don't love about managing fast growth. It's fun. Things move fast. I love to pepper a whole bunch of ideas. I think I have to occasionally put my feet on the ground, and I don't enjoy putting my feet on the ground. I like to live in that speed, but when I sit down and work out practical goals and what I can do, I don't like doing that long-term focusing. I love hitting quick milestones. And as a matter of fact, for a lot of people that are just starting, they set 5-year goals, and they've never hit a goal before in their life, and they set 5-year goals their whole life. And so I say set like 6-month single goals, knock them out of the park, build self-efficacy. Now you start to believe in goal attainment. For me, putting my feet on the ground and saying, what's now possible is exciting, but also reflecting on where we're at, getting out of your own story of how amazing you are and starting to really sit down and go, okay, practically, what am I going to be able to achieve? Is this realistic? Can I actually achieve it? And then letting go of that and just running after it. I love running after that growth. That stopping, it feels, especially in our instant gratification world, like we're standing still and like we're doing something wrong. It is the most important skill set anybody can have, to be willing to stand still, make decisions, build the right strategy to catapult forward. Doesn't mean I enjoy doing it.
And what do you love most about growing a small business?
Oh, the impact you can make. I mean, especially in this business. I mean, there are introverts. I mean, don't get me wrong. I haven't spoken to every person that bought 100 of the 100,000 copies. And I'm a realist. I know a lot of people haven't read that book. They just bought it and it sits on a shelf. But the number of people that send me messages every day about how they believed they couldn't sell, and now they believe that they can start their own business. Or they may not have any interest in sales, but they've read books that say, be proud of who you are as an introvert, but still they went feeling like a second-class citizen that are now empowered. I believe, and this is why I'm so focused on passion-focused businesses rather than, and a lot of times, like somebody might be in insurance and like, well, how do I find the passion in that? There always is. You know, I worked with an insurance company recently and he kept saying, like, you know, I've got a product that can help everybody. I'm not really passionate about anything. And, you know, so everyone's equal. And after just a few questions, we realized that he really loved helping high cash flow businesses and more specifically farmers, because he had a grandfather that ended up having to sell his farm and went into a second-class retirement. It's not hard to find some passion and feel like, I feel like most people are in this position, like I'm in business to serve myself to earn an income. The moment that they flip to, I love doing this because it allows me to help people in this way and have this impact. And I'm not going to waver when somebody says, I want you to do it this way, because I know this is the way that's going to help them the most. All of a sudden they can have this impact. And one of the things I always talk about, because the way I teach storytelling is almost dangerous in the hands of somebody that has a product or service that doesn't serve people and give them a great outcome. But I believe sales, the original term to sell, was derived from the Scandinavian words to serve. And the best way to serve a client, if your product or service helps them, is to get them out of their own way. And if you learn as a small business to get people out of their own way and get them to let you help them, you can move mountains for those people. And that is why I love small business. You're not dictated by some corporate organization that doesn't really have any skin in the game, no real care. You get to decide how you show up, who you serve, and how you make a difference. And I believe that that's important, that everybody gets the opportunity to do that. Now, that's not to say people want that. I just believe it's important that people know that they can. And if there is something they believe they could be serving better outside an organization, to do that.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I actually think, and don't get me wrong, people invest money the wrong way. But a lot of times, especially when you're growing based on money coming in, there's a lot of money going out as quickly as it's going in. And you tell yourself, especially, I mean, I grew up, you know, earning like $12 an hour at McDonald's. So, right, when you bring money in, like you feel like you're spending the money wastefully, right? But a lot of times you don't get to experience the profit of what you did today and spent money on today for 6 months, 12 months. So people tell themselves, I blew $100,000 on marketing and I haven't got enough back out of it. Or I built 100,000. Actually, this isn't a client. Actually, this is one of my very best friends. He's just built this business. He launched it on day one, made $20,000 in a single day from his launch. And he was like, yeah, but I spent 3 months doing this. And I said, well, when's your next launch going to be? He's like, well, now I could do it in 3 weeks. It's scalable now, but you know, I'm still coming from behind. And I'm like, no, he owns property, and that he's got one property that's worth nearly $1 million that pays about $5,500 a month in rent. I said, so even if you spent $1 million on starting this business, what's the goal? Like, because if you just put it in the bank, you'd get a $6,000 paycheck. And sure, you'd be leveraged to what, maybe the numbers work out different. But in my head, if you invest $100,000 and get a 20% return forever on that time, plus all the additional income, that's a really good investment. What people have to stop doing is not seeing the money that they spend in their business as an investment. That being said, a lot of people aren't strategic with their investments, and that's just gambling. So it's about understanding what's gambling and what's just throwing good money after bad to chase a bad business idea, and what is strategic investments that have, again, educated guess, a large chance in a return on investment.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain? Actively
spending time on marketing and sales. So I'll give you an example. I tell this story of this lady called Wendy, who was a language coach that struggled to charge $50 to $80 an hour for consultation. And then what I realized is she was doing all these amazing things, from helping them realize the difference in rapport requirements in China for the executives going to China, to helping them understand the difference in e-commerce, how to handle a business card, why it matters. We rebranded her into the China Success Coach. And we focused on just people being relocated to China. And we took her from charging $50 to $80 an hour to charging $30,000 for a single client. And we mapped her with immigration attorneys that we just gave them the $3,000 commission for a successful introduction, right? So people were falling over her to give her clients. It was an amazing situation. And then I say, so let's build your unified message. Let's find your niche. And then let's go find you a partner that will give you clients because it benefits their clients. And sometimes I run a session that's like 90 minutes long. And I say at the end, do you now have a unified message, your version of the China Success Coach, the rapid growth guy, that you know people will be excited and inspired in a networking room and then later online to want to know more? Yes. Have you identified a group of clients that are willing and wanting to buy. We've got 97% of the hands up. And then I say, now, keep your hands up if this is the most time you spent on actively working on your marketing and sales since you started your business. 85% out of the room always keeps their hand up. The whole session is 90 minutes long. The fact of the matter is, most people consciously, more often, subconsciously avoid it. Or they'll listen to an episode like this and they'll say, oh, I listened to a marketing podcast, so now I've actively worked on my marketing. No, you didn't. You passively worked on it. It's like the person that posts, and I hate this, they'll write on LinkedIn, oh, I read 100 books this year. My number one response is, oh, I'm so sorry. Did you not find a good enough book to implement? Because if you were implementing the books you read, you would spend a lot less time reading. So for me, I'm very focused on actively doing it. So a lot of people, occasionally, well, unfortunately, more often than not, I get people send me LinkedIn messages, and this sounds like a good thing, but I don't like this, is they send me a message saying, Matthew, your book changed my life. And I'm like, oh, great. So you've got the sales system or the networking system implemented. How's that going? Oh, I haven't really built the system the way you highlighted yet. Okay, so you're telling a story, at least in your networking, your sales, that stops you feeling transactional and like you're hitting with them a bunch of jargon. Oh, I don't really have stories the way you highlighted yet. What have you done? No, just knowing I can sell or network has really changed my life. It hasn't. It hasn't changed your life at all. So like for people that listen and understand the concept of specialization and unified message, I'm always telling people, like, go and get somebody else to listen to this podcast that's not in your industry, right? Forget about somebody because they're stuck in your same jargon, right? So if you're a business coach, go and work with an architect. Get them to listen to this episode, understand the concept of unified messaging and specialization. And then go to matthewpollard.com/growth. And there you can download the template that I do live with attendees. And if you spend about 90 minutes on them and about 90 minutes on you, you will find that you have a totally different message. You'll know exactly what marketplace to go after. Now, sure, you'll have some negative hurdles that are in your own way from, am I willing to commit to this, that you need to get over and hold each other accountable, but you can make more money and more profit within the space of just dedicating 90 minutes to yourself. Most people, if I was to ask them if they've ever done that, the answer would be no.
Want specific advice to help you get your business through its #1 growth challenge? Book a free 20-minute growth chat with me, Troy, the founder of Grow a Small Business. I'll recommend some resources which will help you grow your business with ease so you can live the lifestyle you've signed up for. Go to growasmallbusiness.com and click on Growth Chat.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I think that originally I used to always talk about how much money my staff could make by doing certain things and hitting targets, especially in sales. And what I realized is that I was actually breeding a culture of transactionalism. And I actually lost the best people because of that. Because especially in today's world, I think it's even more important. People can make money anywhere. They want to believe that they're really doing something that's helping people or making a difference. And I think this is even more important in large corporations these days. But I've also found that I get better talent by talking about the mission that I'm on. I manage to retain a lot more of my talent by talking about how much of a difference they're making and also paying them well. But the paying them well these days should be an expectation of doing something well.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think it's getting everyone aligned with a common goal and mission. And I know that this, a lot of people say, well, it's impossible to get a job that you love all the time. I tend to attract people that are really aligned with the mission that I'm on. And I would like to think that they love doing what they do all the time, or at least the impact that they have. But I'm forever reminding people the mission that we're on, because sometimes I'll notice that they'll do something that's efficient, but doesn't help somebody with an outcome, or they'll do something that is aligned with getting them out of their own way, but not showing empathy as they do it. And that shows lack of understanding about the introversion psyche. So I find that by helping people understand our clients and helping them see, like occasionally you'll get a client that pushes back and they're angry. And what you could do is get to a point where you're like, well, that was really mean of that person to say. And then you realize that they're hurting. And if you lead with empathy first, then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I was having a bad day. It had nothing to do with you. And here's what's going on. So I've found that meeting them where they are and educating my client, my team to see everybody as in pain or in their own way, but they've hired us to do a specific outcome, and our job's to help them get out of their own way, has created a much better culture than, oh, that person said that mean thing, but don't worry, they're paying us or whatever. Because at the end of the day, We're supposed to help people get to an outcome, and we care far more about getting them to outcomes than getting paid for individual things. And I think that's the culture my team has. They're so proud of the impact that we're making on people.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
So balance is an interesting one. I tend to work in periods. And what I mean by that is I have family in Australia. We were talking about this before we got on. And so I'm going to, currently I'm taking some time. I'm working during some of the days, and I'm out diving in Mexico for a couple of days because we didn't want to travel all the way back to Australia because all the way back to North Carolina because I'm heading to New Zealand for my mother's 70th, and I'm heading to Australia, and then I'm in Phuket, and then I'm in Cairo, and then I'm back and I'm going on a speaking tour. So I've got lots of time off followed by lots of time on. And so, in Australia, we have people in the mining towns that talk about 10 days on, 10 days off. I tend to love getting really invested into projects. But I also know that at least every 2 weeks, I need a couple of days off. And then I also know that I need to fill my travel bug. The truth is, balance is much harder to explain what my balance is to somebody that doesn't enjoy what they do. Because for me, this is my favorite hobby. A lot of times when I'm coaching, I'm getting to play with my favorite toy. Like, that's like saying, get out of the sandbox that you love and go and do something else. Well, that's a mean thing to say.
Mm-hmm. How much professional development have you invested in yourself? Sounds like a lot.
Tons, and continuing to. And the truth is, I don't see a lot of people talk about how much money they spend on professional development like it's a badge of honor. I have changed dramatically and become a better person and a better business person and been more successful because of personal development. And so I don't wear the cost as a badge of honor. I win the outcomes. And don't get me wrong, I've wasted money on professional development as well. And sometimes that's just a bridge that you have to cross.
You mentioned before you've had coaches, some bad ones to begin with, but finally found some good ones. Have you had mentors along the way?
Yeah. So, and just so you know, I've had bad coaches and good coaches concurrently, depending on what my objectives are, right? So sometimes you'll have an objective, you'll luck out on a great coach. Other times you won't luck out. And most people fail by saying, well, that coach was terrible and maybe I'm not coachable. Or they'll say, well, that coach is bad, maybe I'm not good at this thing, right? Just go find someone else, right? There's always a coach that can help you obtain any skill or get to any outcome. But I also feel like people jump to coaches before they try and fix the problem themselves. And some of the best mentors are YouTube videos. So go watch YouTube videos or train yourself up or listen to podcasts. Some of those things can be really powerful as long as you actually apply the principles and they explain it in a full enough way. But yeah, absolutely. I've got mentors. Truthfully, I wouldn't be where I am today without people giving me free guidance because they've seen something in me. People like Ivan Misner, the founder of BNI, we talked about him before. He's given me free guidance, but he's also supported my work and promoted me and really championed me in a lot of places. And so have so many other individuals. And I do for other people. I feel like it's a duty of care that I must have on others to repay the debt for so many that came before me that did that for me.
And for the audience, BNI is Business Networking International, so it's the world's leading breakfast networking organization.
That's correct. Yeah, exactly right.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
So I have a long list of people I call depending on the problem. And I have a long list of people that I'm very, very lucky. And I will say this. I live in this world where I look at networking differently than most people. A lot of people network for prospects. I actually think if you meet a prospect in a networking room, well, it's okay. It's not what I was there for, but it's nice to make some money. But the ticket out of the hamster wheel are momentum partners and champions, people that are willing to open doors for you because they believe in the stuff that you do and you for them, not because it's transactional or an expectation, but because you genuinely want to and they do for you. And it's a give kind of relationship, not everybody, balancing things out. And then a group of champions that are always promoting you, endorsing your work, and people that believe in you. I feel that kind of network is really, really important for me. And what I find is I've got different champions that I ask questions to that are also mentors of mine. And so I don't have an official board of directors, but what I do know is that no matter what my challenge, I don't think there's a single person that I don't think there's a single problem I could be presented with where I couldn't pick up the phone and have somebody answer it or get back to me very quickly and give me exactly what I need. And I'm not afraid to call and ask. I feel like most people need boards of directors so they don't suffer in silence and hold them accountable to actually getting to an outcome. I don't have that problem, which is why I don't need to have official meetings.
You're one of the few that we've had on that's exited a business or two. Any advice for the audience thinking of exiting one day?
Yeah, start thinking about it the day you start.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest mistake that most people have is they start a business it's so weird. People start businesses, and if you're an extrovert, you become the primary salesperson in your business, which makes your business unsellable. So when I talk about, it's funny, I talk to introverts about sales systemization. Extroverts need it just as much because they've got a business. If they're the primary salesperson, their business isn't sellable, at least not for the multiples that they want. But then the other thing that you find is people build a business around what they want to do, and they end up building something that even they wouldn't want to buy. And what's really interesting, and actually I've got a client and he's out of New Zealand, and we call him the cash out catalyst because he helps people cash out of their businesses and exit. And quite frequently, the people that he works with, once they built the business for sale, they don't want to sell it. Now they enjoy it and they're re-energized by it. So I don't understand why it's like having a house that looks terrible, is dirty and covered in mold, and you renovate it to sell it. Why would you not renovate it to live in and then sell it later? It doesn't make any sense. So for me, build a business that anybody would want to buy at any time, and then you're far less likely to want to sell it. Because if you've got a business that you don't like and somebody offers you a very small multiple, you'll jump at it and you'll leave tons of money on the table. And truthfully, it's probably not going to happen. What will happen is you get tired and you then go, I don't have the time and the bandwidth to do all this getting ready for the sales stuff. And then you just walk out of your business. And there is an entire marketplace of people buying businesses for nothing and giving them money back. And that's if you're lucky. More often than not, the businesses just close.
Yeah, it's only something like, I've had John Warrilow on the podcast a couple of times. Have you read any of his books, Built to Sell, Automatic Customer, and The Art of Selling a Business? Great books. And his weekly podcast, the Built to Sell Radio, is awesome. But we were talking about the stat. There's only 10 or 20% of businesses that are put on the market for sale that actually end up selling.
Yeah, it's horrible. And the truth is that a lot of businesses get given to family members that don't want it, that feel like they have to inherit dad's business or mum's business to continue the family legacy. And it's worse because the family member then sells it to them and gets money back at an interest rate, and it leaves the kid in a horrible situation.
Yeah.
So those things happen, and you've got other people that have to deal with the fact they've left their life, they've shut the doors. My client in New Zealand uses it, don't let your life's work retire with you. Dealing with that gives you regret, and regret is one thing you can't run from when you've got nothing but time in retirement to think about it.
All right, Matt, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
The hardest thing is, I think, like back to the question that you asked me before, standing still to get the strategy right. Don't get excited with your own self-importance or believe something that you haven't validated.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I like E-Myth. E-Myth's a great book. It helps me really understand that even if I can, doesn't mean I should do that job in my business.
Yeah, it's the number 1 book I recommend to people who want to start, let alone grow their business. It's a terrific book.
Michael's great.
Yeah.
Not an introvert, but my gosh, he's got some great strategies.
Yeah. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
You know, when I started in the online world, so, I mean, every business that I built in Australia was bricks and mortar, direct marketing, direct sales, retail stores. When I moved to the US, I decided to move to the US because I wanted to open a business in a bigger marketplace. And I was like, well, America's got 320 odd plus now 350 million people. Great. But then I realized, how am I ever going to get home and see my family if I've got a whole bunch of staff and a big infrastructure here and a lot to watch? So I decided to build an online business. And Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn was one of the podcasts that I got a lot of value off. It didn't give me what I needed in order what to do, but it opened up a lot of, I should read that book or I should do that thing. Just be careful. Otherwise you'll end up buying a whole bunch of software products that you don't need and trainings you don't need.
Yeah, I love Pat's podcast and the work he's done over the last 15 years. I've been following him for quite some time. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Oh, that's a good question. So I like project management software. I really like Monday.com. I feel like I should go down the AI route and talk about, the clipping of videos through Opus Clip or something like that, or writing through ChatGPT and their new GPTs. I'm going to go in a different direction though. And I feel that social media posting tools are really helpful because everybody, one of the things I talk about all the time is, and I mentioned it earlier, if you can't articulate the value of what you provide when somebody's politely listening, in a networking room, you got no chance online. But once you can do that, the thing I find is you don't have to be the loudest because you're the clearest. And when you're the clearest, you don't have to follow that, post all these times a day and make sure you post them natively. All my stuff's automated. And, for me, I don't want people sitting there taking a photo with their dog or their donut for something to say online. So I love social posting tools. And I will say, if you had to ask me a while back, I would have said CoSchedule, because it has a posting tool, but then it also has a reposting tool called Requeue. There are a lot more technologies now that have that technology. And it really is, all you need is a tool that will repost without you manually doing it, that will post the link in the comments, not in the post after the fact, and something that will post on all networks. And at the moment, we're about to migrate to a cool tool, Vista Social, which is a lot more affordable than some of the others, and I actually think far more effective. But there are so many tools coming into the market, and as long as you tick those 3 boxes, if you can get something on like a AppSumo, cheap discount website, go do it.
Final on my favorite question. What would you tell yourself? I'm sorry, start that again. Final on my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out?
Oh gosh, to stop taking myself so seriously, I think. I haven't been, and I still struggle with this. Occasionally I'll have a client and I'll get off and I'm like, how did that session go? And I'll be anxious about it. And then I'll realize I had the customer's best intentions at heart. And that's okay. As long as I had their best intentions at heart and it wasn't about an ego thing or proving that I was great, but I'm willing to throw myself under the bus to get them a great outcome, no problem. I find the same from stage. And I find that as long as I'm always having the person that I'm talking to's best intentions at heart, then I cannot take myself so seriously. And that's been a really powerful thing for me.
Thanks so much for your time today, Matt. Really enjoyed our chat, and congratulations on building up a couple of businesses in Australia, exiting those, and then moving to the US 10 years ago, going from a team of 1 now to 12, and helping professional service business owners, introverts, become clearer in their messaging, and obviously helping with their sales and marketing as well. Thank you.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.